All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Groundwork USA's webinar, Community Leadership, Changing Legacy, Locally Led Change in Paris, Kentucky. And so for today's webinar, we'll start by giving a quick overview of Groundwork USA and our Brownfield Technical Assistance Program. We'll do the video screening to share the work that the folks who joined us today have been leading in Paris, Kentucky. We'll follow that by a panel discussion, and then we should have some time for audience Q&A. And you all should see a Q&A box on your screen that you can pop questions in during the webinar. And if we can get to it while we're presenting or while we're sharing the video, we will. If not, we'll get to it during the Q&A section. And then we'll, follow that by just sharing some upcoming events and resources so that you all can connect with Groundwork USA. And so with that, Groundwork USA is a national environmental nonprofit that envisions a world in which everyone lives in a community that is healthy, green, just, and resilient. We also are the national support organization for a network of Groundwork affiliate community-based organizations working in their neighborhoods to create communities that are healthier, more green, and resilient and just. And you can see on this map that this is where some of our Groundwork affiliates are located. And so this webinar today is brought to you through our nonprofit Brownfield Technical Assistance Program, which is a nationwide capacity building program specifically tailored to nonprofits that is funded by the EPA's Office of Brownfields and Land Revitalizations. And the goal of this program is to increase the capacity of nonprofits who are working in their communities with brownfields to transform their spaces so all communities can benefit from a safe and healthy environment, and helping them to transform those spaces into community assets like parks, trails, urban farms, affordable housing, commercial space, and much more. And ultimately to help improve public health in your communities. For those of you who don't know, brownfields are typically underutilized spaces that may have some contamination. And, cleaning up these spaces will ultimately improve public health. And so through our technical assistance program, we offer direct technical assistance, webinars and workshops, and visual resources. And so our direct technical assistance is where we work one-on-one with clients to provide technical assistance. And we also have a learning coaching cohort where we work with multiple nonprofits together that we have once a year, and we'll be doing the second round in October. We also offer webinars and workshops like the one that we're having today. And these are open to the public. Anyone can join, and we talk about different brownfield land reuse topics. And then the last thing that we offer is a library of resources to help you get started on your brownfield journey. And this is also on our website, free and open to anyone who's interested in brownfields and land reuse for their communities. And so today's webinar is part of our nonprofit speaker series where we feature nonprofits who are working on brownfield issues. Groundwork USA had the pleasure of working with the Paris Westside Neighborhood Association and community residents and folks to support their work in the community. And we have a video that's going to share some of the work that they've been leading in their community for years. So we're really excited to have them join us today. And so some of the things that we'll dive into in this webinar today is, again, how transforming brownfields can, really enhance your local environment, improve public health and economic conditions. We'll, explore how residents, advocates, and government agencies can collaborate to drive brownfield redevelopment and create lasting community-led change. And and understanding how addressing past land use decisions that have harmed communities can lead to long-term sustainable solutions that put residents' needs first and create lasting positive change. And so today, our guest speakers are Vanessa Logan, the president of the Paris Westside Neighborhood Association, Anna Allen Edwards, the founder of the Paris Westside Neighborhood Association, Bill Alverson, a close community partner and a retired community banker. All three of them have a lot of inspiration, wisdom, and knowledge to share today, and I'm really excited to get this webinar started. But before that, we will show the film that shares a little bit of their work before we head into the panel discussion. And so give me 1 second. All right.
I am from Paris, Kentucky. I grew up on the west side. Historically, it would be called the colored side of town. Bourbon County grew tobacco, so we had lots of enslaved Africans who lived in the county. And after the end of the Civil War, many remained here because it was a segregated community. African Americans were relegated to certain sides of the town, like the west side. It was a community where everybody was striving to do better.
Y'all can do better than that. Y'all act like God ain't do nothing for you. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so.
When I was a little girl in the West Side, everybody's house was painted. The lawns were cut. There were flowers, and it was just a beautiful neighborhood.
It's clear when you look at the maps that at one point in time, the West Side neighborhood was a thriving community. There has been an obvious decline in the quality of life.
In the same year that the Voting Rights Act was signed, the West Side community of Paris, Kentucky, had an incinerator placed in it.
You would see this cloud of black smoke. I don't know as a child what they were burning, but whatever they were burning smelled terrible.
The thing about this incinerator, as a brownfield site, it's not entirely clear what was being burnt, and so all of that material goes somewhere, into the soil, into the water.
Low-income Black and Latino neighborhoods are typically those that are targeted for these types of uses.
I knew the neighborhood, but it didn't register with me for many years that there was a transfer station / dump in the neighborhood.
That area was called Fairview for a reason. People had a fair view of the creek, the land, and to place a dump there tells you that people did not consider the folk who were over there, that their properties were worth much, and that they were worth much. I will always remember our community having a sense of you can't fight City Hall, and that they were essentially powerless. I was just so frustrated with the West Side, and I wanted to do something for my community. So I ran for city government. When I was campaigning, I stopped by Vanessa Logan's porch to ask her to put a sign in the yard.
We were talking about how the neighborhood had just gone down and that there needed to be changes.
It was just not a sense of a whole lot of opportunity for you. And the older people already knew that the die had been cast, so that's what they were stuck with, and so they just lived with it.
This is a place where anybody can go, purchase a home, and live comfortably. That's what I remember the West Side as being, and that's what I want it to be.
October the 2nd, 2019 was the first meeting of the Westside Neighborhood Association, and there was a room full of concerned citizens from the West Side who showed up that night. There is safety in numbers, and if many of us come together, then nobody can shut us up.
The people got very excited about this process. After Anna became commissioner, she brought all the right people to the table at the right time for people to care about wanting to do something on the West Side.
Whenever you're going to do something, you need allies. You need people who are influential and who know people who are decision makers. And Bill Alverson is that person for us.
There was no way of not seeing that it was the right thing to do, that nobody would want that in their backyard. Through these meetings, Anna Edwards introduced me to Vanessa Logan. It just started building, and we started inviting people to come to meetings. Our meetings just kept growing and growing and growing.
Over the course of that time, the neighborhood met over 50 times. That gives you an idea of how committed the neighborhood was.
But the process has been challenging at times, getting everybody on board and keeping them on board.
There were folks who literally said things like, leave it over there. It's nothing but a bunch of raggedy houses over there anyway. There are some people who don't understand that injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere.
Bill reached out to Groundwork USA to assist the community in getting more organized and to help them turn their vision of closing down the town dump and converting it into some community asset.
This is a great project and a much needed one. So today, I'm awarding the City of Paris $2 million in community development block grant funding to get this done.
I see a big difference. Things are beginning to happen. Yeah. And I never thought that I would live long enough to see it. But we always wondered what would happen if they take all this junk out of Fairview. That's all we thought about. And now it's becoming reality.
Girls, what's going on? We went from door to door and we talked to people. We decided to do a survey of what the neighborhood would like to see the transfer station be to repurpose it. So they wanted access to the water way down there. They wanted playgrounds and shelters.
We've been authorized by EPA to conduct the remaining site assessment. We're going to find out if there's any contamination or not.
Through our Brownfields Technical Assistance Program at Groundwork USA, we work with communities to help them create a vision for what the future of the community can look like.
We anticipate in early 2025, we will be cutting the ribbon on the new location, which we're very excited about. We have a real chance here to make a plan for the future.
One of the most inspiring things about this engagement is that it has been led by an intergenerational, interracial group of residents that knew that they needed to work together to correct a legacy of injustice that was placed in the Westside neighborhood in 1965.
We're in a new day, can't rewrite the past, but we can sure make it better going forward, where somebody will say, my goodness, how'd they do that in little old Paris, Kentucky?
I hope that the legacy for our community will be that there once was a powerful people and that their voices actually made a difference.
That was really nice. So we're going to hop in to our panel discussion. And again, if you have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to put it into the Q&A. And so Anna, if you come off camera, we can also add you to the panel as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. 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 And if you need to take a second.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a really like long, you all did work for a long, long time and a very powerful story, which I'm sure a lot of people appreciate. And thank you all for taking the time to come and share it with us today. It's really appreciated. And especially just want to say, happy Black History Month and, appreciate you all sharing your stories. And so with that, I'd love to have our panelists that we have joining us today reintroduce themselves. Just, share your name. I think we all saw it, but as a reminder, who you are, that'd be great. And if Vanessa and Bill, if you want to kick us off, that'd be great. So just reintroduce yourselves to our panel, our audience that we have with us today.
Vanessa Logan, President of the Paris Westside Neighborhood Association.
Bill Alverson, member of Paris Westside Neighborhood Association.
We also have Anna joining us. Anna, I don't know if you want to say anything or if you need a second.
Anna Allen Edwards, founder.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So my first question that I have for you all today, I think it would have been easy to say it is what it is with that transfer station. That's given it's been around for decades. And so how did this start? What really inspired you to take action and how did you first get involved?
Well, I guess I get to have that lead question. I grew up on the West Side, and actually, um, at one time, our home would have caught on fire when they had one of the fires at the dump. If the wind had just shifted a few feet, and as many people don't know, but there's also a landfill over there, which is right outside of my home place back porch. But as I said in the video, it's that I knew the people growing up, and I know how proud is it sounds proud, but I know how dedicated they were to home ownership, how happy they were to have their own places, and how much they wanted to live the American dream. But for them, the way they were treated was almost like a nightmare. So I wanted to do what I could do. And I was so grateful that at the same time, as we say, the force, everything aligned. Bill Alverson was on the Economic Development Committee, or maybe he wasn't, but he was working with somebody. And our state representative, Matt Cook, was on the Economic Development Committee. And Andrea was our planning administrator, who had a heart for justice. So all the forces aligned. And I was sick of hearing our older people complain about things and never seeming to get what they want. And most people left, but those who stayed deserved better than what they had been given.
Thank you, Anna. And I think you started sharing about some of the other folks and the team that really helped to move this forward. So can you talk to us about the people on your team and the skills that they brought to the table?
Well, as I said, everything starts to align. I went to church with a an urban planner who had a heart for justice, and he owns a consulting business, a major consulting business, and we invited him to come and be a part of it, and he showed up at our very first meeting, and that's Ed Holmes. And as we all will tell you, without Ed Holmes, we would not have what we have and would not have been able to move as quickly as we were able to move. So Ed Holmes with EHI Consulting was pivotal to our success. But we also had people um, like Bill, who had grown up playing basketball. We had not long integrated in the 60s. We integrated, um, the high school had already started, but the elementary schools didn't start until the 65, 66. So Bill had played basketball, football, sports with a lot of these guys who lived on the west side. And so he had an affinity for them. He knew them. And when he came over there, he couldn't believe what he saw. Uh, our state representative was head of our economic development committee. And if you want businesses to come in town, they got to go through the west side because of where the industrial park is located. That's not an inviting scene. As I said, Andrea had a heart for justice. But we also had Vanessa, who I'm not going to call her what I usually call her, but Vanessa is tenacious, let's put it that way, and fears no one. But I would be remiss, and it's always almost like this is very bittersweet because our first meeting was October the 2nd, 2019, and it was my sister's birthday. And my sister was killed in a car accident in 2022, so she didn't get to see, but she was another Vanessa. And then we had local the Pennies and Ann Young, and we had other folks who came alongside and joined our team. But the city commissioners were committed. Our city was committed to it, to getting it done. And we got a new city manager, Jamie Miller, who's just been phenomenal. And our director of streets, Mike Smith, can't say enough about how he worked with us. And I don't want to do all the talking, so I'm going to shut up because I can easily do all the talking.
Thank you, for sharing that. Yeah, really a lot of folks, yeah, including your sister, who were involved in this. So it's nice to hear all the different pieces and how they came together. And so, Vanessa, the Paris Westside Neighborhood Association, does a lot of different work for the community. And so can you share a little bit of how you separated the engagement of the transfer station from your other projects, and what did your work look like? And, how did you engage the community during the advocacy process?
Well, the first thing we did was we had a meeting after Anna's first meeting, and we were on Zoom at that time because we started in 2019, then COVID hit in 2020, so we all had to be on Zoom calls. And we listened to what people were asking questions about and things they needed to know and everything. And in early 2021, that's when Anna set up the committees. And she did a marvelous job of setting people up with people to get the work done. There were 3 committees set up. The one that Bill and I chaired was Housing, Safety, and Infrastructure. Then Arthur Newberry and Young and Gross, they chaired Arts and Recreation. The economic development was done with Sharon Fields. So there were 3 great committees set up. And what Bill and I did to get it kicked off was we listened to everything the community needed to know about. And what we started to do was bring all the people in Paris, the city of Paris, or Bourbon County, to organizations like the health department, community action, everybody came in and, excuse me, and spoke about what they did, what they had to offer the neighborhood with, and also the city of Paris. And then as we were doing these meetings, one major thing came out about people having emergency numbers and who to call and what for. So Andrea uh, put together a listing of all the emergency numbers or any other numbers that people were asking about. And it was just on one page, and it was uh, given out to all the neighborhoods. But it was surprising to know that in this neighborhood, people did not know where to go. They didn't know who their magistrates were. They did not know that they could call all 4 city commissioners to get something done because it's not one person assigned over here. It was just a lot that they didn't know. So that's how we started. And in the background of all of that, Bill was working on the transfer station because it was decided that that needed to go out of the neighborhood. So Bill worked on that nonstop, I know. And I just followed Bill's lead because I knew nothing about moving the transfer station. And Bill knew everybody.
Well, I didn't know much about moving a transfer station, but I guess, Vanessa, we knew who maybe we could try to call and convince and explain, and where they had an understanding of what we were trying to do. And I'd say we didn't leave any stones unturned, but one of the key points, one of the key things that happened, the old dump, it was a city of Paris owned property. It was their project. They owned it. They're the ones that, the government here, we have a city and county government. So it was a city, for lack of a better term, a city issue, not necessarily a county issue. And we have 2 forms of government. But our county judge, in finding land suitable to relocate that wouldn't be infringing on another neighborhood, it was really difficult. And the county had some property that was unused, that was more in an industrial area, where our county judge executive, Mike Williams, brought before the fiscal court to donate this property to the cause. And it was a resounding unified vote from the court, and that really started it when government saw the city and the county working together. That's when the governor's office and the Department of Local Government awarded $2 million toward the construction of a new facility. And then also our state representatives, Matt Cook and Steve West, obtained through the General Assembly budget process, another $1.5 million to $2 million. And the key component is here, this was people on both sides of the aisle, so to speak. Democratic governor of Kentucky, Republican county judge, Republican state representative, and Republican state senator. So everyone together was on board to make this work, because to coin a phrase from what Judge Williams said in a court meeting, it's the right thing to do. So, and had Anna Edwards not been elected that first term as a city commissioner, we probably wouldn't be discussing this today.
Exactly. We wouldn't.
And that's why we say it was divine providence, because I was only elected that one time. So, so if you ever wonder if you have a purpose, I know that was the purpose, because that was the first and only time I was elected. But it didn't stop the work from getting done, because one of the things I tried to do is that anybody who was running for office, I would invite them to our West Side meetings so that they would get on board. And And they did. They got elected and they were on board. So we didn't get any naysayers from the elected officials per se, because they had been introduced, and there was such momentum going. It was such excitement, you know, that after that first meeting at the high school, we met the first time in the city barn, I guess. But we were too big for that. So we had to move the next time to the high school. And that's really important too, because when we integrated, we lost the Black school, the African American school. We would call it the colored school, that's what it was called then. We lost that physical building. So as a community, there was no place except from churches where African Americans could gather and coalesce around anything. So for and Bill had inroads at the school. Although I graduated from the school too, I didn't have the same sense of belonging to the school as Bill did. And we had a superintendent who was Stephen McCauley, who was very community focused. And so he let people so into the schools. And that was so good, because people started owning all of that, you know, feeling part of the community. And that's so important. Is because if you believe you belong to something, then you think that you have rights and responsibilities. So having that sense of belonging, that sense of community, meeting at the school, as simple as that was, that started to cement the people's belief that they belong to this community, and that they were welcome to participate in the community. And that's really important for people to have a sense of belonging, and for people to feel welcome to participate. And when you got elected officials who come to meetings, and not only the elected officials, but we got the city workers, like, you know, Andrea, of course, she was a planning administrator. We got the chief of police, the chief of the fire department. All of them came, the drug task force leaders, they started coming to our meetings. And that also helped cement relationships among the community, because now they're seeing that the police and the fire department, our public workers, indeed work with them and for them and value them. So it was all good at the time. And we also did something. We developed a West Side coloring book for the African Americans who were from the West Side, who went on to do things like J.C. Latin has all these patents that people don't know about. He worked for Procter and Gamble. He also had worked for Percy Julian. And, you know, and he was a chemist. Um, we Although Garrett Morgan was not born on the West Side, he attended church on the West Side. And Garrett Morgan is famous for the traffic light and the gas mask, and that's worldwide. And he was born here in Paris, Kentucky. And when Bill and Vanessa mentioned people learning about the magistrates, um, folk often just thought that they belonged to the city. If you lived in Paris, you belonged to the city, not understanding that you live in the county of Bourbon. So what, regardless of it, our magistrates also represented us in the city. And that was eye-opening to so many people, and even some of the magistrates, it was eye-opening to them that they represented people in the city. But it did a lot of good. It was much more. The transfer station that just does not benefit people in the Black community or in the West Side community. The transfer station benefits all of the county. As Bill was saying, the county judge got involved, but all the county will now benefit from that, not just our little city. So it's the implications are far reaching, much more far reaching than just moving something out of a neighborhood. Um, and Bill did use all the resources. He used my high school classmate, because at first I just wanted a road out of there. And Bill checked with him, said, "Oh, it's going to cost X amount of millions of dollars to do." And look, I think we spent that much or more, Bill, but you got something better.
Yes, ma'am, we sure did.
Yeah. Thank you
it-
so much, Anna, for sharing that history of the partnership and the site, and Bill for sharing a little bit about your relationship with the local government, or best even Bill and Anna for sharing about that relationship. There were some audience questions that came in, and I think Anna, you might have answered some of this already, but I want to put it out to all three of you. And so we had someone said, "Congratulations on the change you were able to create together." I second that. And with regards to the growing meetings that led to the incinerator being closed, they're curious what was discussed at those earlier meetings and what you believe led to the success that kept people coming back and joining. And I think, Anna, you might have shared a little bit about the success, but I just want to open it up. Do you all have anything else to share around that? What was really discussed in the meetings and what led to the successfulness of those meetings and moving everything forward?
Well, Bill and our meetings were focused solely on what the West Side needed. So by us going out and getting everybody like community action and letting them come and speak and pass out and have questions asked of them, what this organization can provide. Okay. Then we had the health department to come, and they came and they talked about all of their services and services that they might have to go out of the community for. A lot of people didn't know that. The different kinds of uh, services they perform right at the health department here. Then we brought the police department in. That was important because the residents needed to get to know the policemen. And from that, what they do in the summer is they come and walk the neighborhood so that they can talk to people. And people can stop being afraid to talk to them. If you got a problem, call them up, talk to them, or ask them to come by. You'd like to talk to them. So they do that now. And like the drug task force, Bill knew him, and he came and he gave some stats to us that was just unreal, and I would have never even thought all this was going on in Paris, Kentucky. But it was.
So you were able to really
Right.
understand all the different resources available
Right.
to the residents in the community and really
Right.
bring it all together and make sure people know, like, what is the responsibility of the city and the community to support their residents, and you all facilitated bringing that together.
Right. Then we had financial people to come in, bankers, credit unions, people who have grants for people over a certain age, and how you apply for these grants and things like that. Things that would just help this community to get better.
Yeah. And so I want to pivot a little bit. We all know that Groundwork USA had the opportunity to work with you all, as well as like the EPA and the National Park Service. And so I wanted to, can you share a little bit about how these more external partnerships complemented or deepened the work at the community level? And then how did you learn about the Groundfield Technical Assistance Program?
Well, we heard about you all, Groundwork USA, through a lady named Teresa Zawacki, who was working on the west end of Louisville, which is 75 miles from here, out of the mayor's office in Jefferson County. And she had referred me to contact you all. And that we were, I guess we went through an interview process, and you all saw the need and were nice enough to support us with the consultative grants that we did. And I think and you all also kind of kept our, for lack of a better term, us on task with keeping us properly organized with regular meetings to discuss the issues that we were trying to manage through and work through. Then through all this, when we determined that the transfer station was going to be moved, and we entered into a consultant contract with the National Park Service, and they have been real helpful working with a gentleman named Bill Hinkle, who had a class of UK students, landscape architectural students, who developed 10 different plans, feasibility type studies of the old site once it's cleaned up. So we have that in the works as well. And it was beautiful, great ideas, and the community had input into that, and they landed on one particular one that is going to be I guess, for lack of a better term, the master plan to work from. And then also, the housing component here is really important, obviously. And, and going back to why the need was to move the dump, not just, it wasn't injustice, but, it's kind of like, if you're going to attract people into neighborhoods, new housing, purchase a home, in a lot of cases, you'd ask somebody here that, well, where are you from? I'm from Paris. Well, where did you grow up? Well, I grew up over where Paris Western School was. Well, where's that? Well, that's near, that's a park next to the dump that they have called Chief Reed Park. Now, where's Chief Reed Park? Oh, that's next to the dump. Oh, you lived close to the dump. So, you have that stigma that needs to be eradicated. I think we're well on our way. And we've got a lot of moving parts, or like the term, some balls in the air, with cleanup, re-envisioning the park area, and then working on some rehabilitation of housing and some new housing.
Well, thank you so much, Phil, for sharing that. So we have some more audience questions, and I'm seeing some similar ones. So I'm going to ask them both, and this is for everyone. And so, how are you able to turn your naysayers into advocates? And then I think a similar question. I think it disappeared, but I think it was similar to, in the video you shared that, not everyone wanted the site to change. And, how did you work with that? How did you overcome that challenge? And just share a little bit how you, did what you needed to do to keep the project moving.
Well, I think so. I'll cite this example. One day I was talking to a neighbor. This is well before we had any kind of grant money. And I said, what if we could close the dump? Do you think that'd make a difference? And the gentleman said, I don't know. Maybe. I doubt it. So then I got another thought hit me. I said, what if we could close it and make a park out of it? Oh, that would be a great idea. So it's an educational, everybody's learning curve, and what is on their mind at that particular moment may be a little different than what you're trying to explain to them and get across. And it took some time, but we kept, for lack of a better term, preaching the sermon that if you're going to have an improved neighborhood, you've got to close this eyesore where vehicles and dumpsters and trucks and tires and nails are coming through all kinds of venues through the neighborhood, and their debris falls off their vehicles in your front yard, in your side street. And so eventually people started realizing that is a problem. And then we really had the Ministerial Association on our side. Politicians were on our side. They're all agreeing. And it just kind of, like I think Vanessa said earlier, that it just kind of compounded and grew. It just started growing and growing. So the limited I would say the limited opposition we had was vocal and loud. But when the facts were shown to them, it died down. And again, the location, we were not near any homes, more in an industrial area. But a lot of this is education, educating the public. Some people initially thought, and this really shocked me. Some people initially thought that it was a landfill. And we were moving a landfill across town. And it was as far from being a landfill as, they burn trash there and they haul trash from that site. But it was not a landfill. So we had to calm folks down about that, where that's not the purpose. That's not what it is. And some people said, oh, if the city admits they've got a problem over there, they're going to get sued by the EPA. And we talked to folks with the EPA, and I said, well, Bill, in our history that we know of, anybody that tries to clean something up and make something better out of it, we've never sued them, to our knowledge. The local folks here in state government told us that. So we had to dispel a lot of myths, just a lot of unknowns, and sometimes it's the fear factor. The fear of the unknown is more fearful itself than the reality of the facts. So I think we all spread the word and had people on board, and I think Anna said too, it just got momentum. We just got the momentum to get it across the finish line.
But it was also the transparency, because there was nothing done behind closed doors that you didn't share. People knew exactly what was going on. The newspaper was there writing articles all the time. So when people said they didn't know, that they'd never heard of it, he's like, well, pull out the article and so and so. So you have transparency, education, and communication. Constant communication. But I think that transparency piece, Bill and Vanessa, and we're all open books. We are not going to lie to you. We're going to tell you as it is. And I think that's important to people.
50 community meetings is a little bit above anything. Transparency, my goodness gracious. But like Anna said, we had the newspaper there, and all the time they would cover it. And our little paper here gets out to most of the homes in the community.
Mm-hmm. And then we did that over 300 door-to-door house survey over here. And we heard about everything. And we also heard about people's needs and what they needed. And we had to give out phone numbers because they needed to contact people and things like that. So they got the information they needed from us. And it was just amazing to me still that when you knocked on somebody's door, talked about a survey, they had all these other problems. And they didn't mind telling you about them.
Yeah, I thank you so much for sharing that. And I feel like some other folks asked, like, how did you keep people motivated throughout the process? And also, was there additional work to be done to get the residents to care? I think you've already shared a little bit that, the transparency, the education, and the constant communication were your like 3 main strategies. And it seems like it worked really, really well. Is there anything else you want to add to that about how you kept people motivated, or how you got the residents to care? Just wanted to give you the opportunity to share anything else.
I'm just want to add one thing. We would bring people from out of town. We're a small community, 20,000 folks here, and you go to Lexington, which is 15 miles from here, Lexington, Kentucky, and you've got 450,000. And our state capital is not too far away. So, our state representative had been through the neighborhood, obviously. We brought the Secretary of Transportation over to the site. That was real helpful. He knew what was going on when an opportunity came up where they had to approve some funding for the new site for deceleration lanes. He already knew what it was all about. So a lot of that, informing the public and people in government outside the city, it was real, through our contacts and friends of friends, we were able to build up awareness. So I think that's another reason why things may have moved a little faster after the county jumped on board.
And so that's called results. They saw results. Remember, Matt Cook loves to tell the story about the commode after after that second meeting. Somebody complained about a commode being in their, in their view in the neighborhood, and they got the commode picked up. So when you bring in those kinds of allies that Bill's talking about, they're aware of the process, and they have the big picture. So we had people who understood the big picture view, and once they understood it, then they were able to, at the right time, to acquiesce. And once they did that, you had results. So people, for the first time, saw things actually moving. You got results when you, like Vanessa said, they were ready to tell us what was going on because they kept getting results. We didn't just, if they told us something, we went and did something about it. Somebody told me about, they needed somebody they were going too fast past their house. So we went, asked the city, Mike Smith got stop signs put up. So even though that wasn't directly related to the dump per se, it was an action that resulted in a result that was satisfactory to the community. And I think that that was really significant.
And let me tell you something. Don't come in town and talk to Bill and then he tell you about the transfer station, because then he's calling me and we're getting ready to go on the 101 tour of the transfer station, because everybody had to go there. and they seem to enjoy it.
Oh, Lordy.
It'd be so hot some days. Oh, Lordy. But it was all good.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, because they couldn't really believe that. Okay, this is sitting over here like this.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about your vision for the future of the transfer site and or the closed transfer site, and what community engagement or progress is happening right now?
Well, Russell Clark has started to have meetings with us. And like Bill said, these 10 landscape architect students did these drawings. And from the drawings that we've let Russell see, and we gave them access to what the community wants over here. So that's what they're doing. And we just had our second meeting in December, and they were showing the shelters and the parking and the different things. And what has happened is all Westside residents are working on the drawings for the transfer station, because who better knows what they want over there than the Westside residents. And I was there. I go to those meetings and I took a look at it, and we're going to have to have more parking at the beginning of it and less parking around the shelters, because that's going to cause a traffic nightmare, like we were talking to Russell about it. I mean, yeah, you're going to have some parking, because say for instance, you had somebody who's handicapped. You need to get them as close to that shelter that they're going to as you possibly can. But we just can't have 20 parking spaces beside each shelter. We can't do that. So there's some changes to be made. And we talked about that. And then our biggest thing that we're working on is we have to find a way to come out of that park that doesn't come back through Fairview. Because what we'd like to see at the beginning of Fairview, when you enter, that's a one-way in. And then when you get ready to leave, you got to go another way to get out of there. So that's gonna be huge to make that happen for that park. Or it won't work. It just won't work over there.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. So you're working with the community, you're working with Russell Clark from the National Park Service to really start designing what the green space and open space will look like. Um, yeah, and so can you share a little bit more about, you mentioned a survey of the residents earlier. How is that survey incorporated into these drawings for the site, or how has that been incorporated into the plans that you all have?
Well, the four top things on the survey was green space, walking trails, being able to get to the water there, and shelters. But the playgrounds that they wanted them to be age appropriate. And then the senior citizens want a walking trail along there with benches so that when they walk and they get tired, they can sit down. Or if they want to just walk there in the mornings and read a book or their newspaper, that's what they wanted, to have a green space and quiet time. So all of that has been taken into consideration along with the drawings that the students did. And also the students had access to the surveys so that when they did their drawings, they put in what was on the survey and the people wanted.
So I have a couple more questions in the chat. What was the greatest resistance towards accomplishing this, and how did you overcome it? And so just the greatest resistance or greatest challenge?
Good question. I think the greatest challenge was, gosh, trying to hurry up and get it done.
Mm.
You know, and getting government to move faster than it normally would. And it's not a negative, it was just kind of a reality. And, I guess an example would be when they were putting the project after we had the money out for bid, because there was a deadline on the expenditure of the first grant that we got from Governor Beshear. It had to be spent by the end of 2024. And we kept running into delays for various sundry reasons. And then, that got back on track. But I just think getting things moving once you've got the money, and it's not finished when you get the money. You've got to get plans to build the new site. And I would say that would have been one of the hardest things, getting government to move and act on something that they were in favor of. Not that they weren't in favor of, just getting to move and act.
Yeah. And would you say this is still the big challenge that remains, just kind of getting things moving quickly, or is there anything else that you're kind of, looking forward to trying to tackle?
I don't see a huge stumbling block now.
No. And that's because of Jamie Miller, who is the city manager, and Mike Smith, who's over the public works. They are moving this thing along. And I think it was in October that Jamie announced that $2 million had been spent. She was going to see to that, and we knew she was going to see to it. So it was spent.
Yeah, our initial resistance came from those associated with the government, with the elected officials, those who were our advisors. They were dragging their feet. They didn't want to get it done, and they didn't want to pay Ed Holmes any money. Ed Holmes consultant, he gave us so much money in-kind services to us. If it had not been for him, we would not have been able to have moved forward. EHI consultant met with us for free during a pandemic. The pandemic hit, and we met more than the city met. um, in terms of working on not just this, but all, several initiatives in the West Side. So, but I give great kudos to EHI Consultant for getting us off the starting block, because we did have some initial resistance, not so much from the elected officials, but for those who were our advisors. They were like, we don't have money, da 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 da, initially. So he did a lot of pro bono work for us in the beginning.
And thank God for Ed right now. We can call Ed up and ask Ed a question right now and not get charged for it. Because he's still working with us. I'm working on one of the projects right now about a tiny house that was put over here, and it didn't look like the rest of the housing here. So then that, you know, uh, messed up the value of people's homes. So we had to put together a revitalization plan about how we need housing to look over here, whether you're building it brand new or you're remodeling over 80% of it. It has to have certain features on the house.
But what the good thing about that, again, the whole city is now going to benefit from that, because that
Yes.
revitalization plan is not just going to be for the West Side; it's going to be for the
Whole
whole city,
city.
the community. And again, that's the West Side. If the West Side had not led this charge, the Paris West Side had not led this charge, the city of Paris wouldn't have some of the things that it has and will have in the future. So. Many kudos to Vanessa and Bill for their tenacity. I just can't tell you enough. I can't say enough good things about them and the other subcommittee chairs too. But the housing and infrastructure and safety has been major for our communities, because it's the infrastructure. If you don't have a solid foundation, the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. So by them leading the charge, um, they have become an incredible force of good for our community, and I just can't applaud them enough.
Oh, and one more thing. I keep thinking about things. Code enforcement. Did you know that they did not have a code enforcement person here in Paris, Bourbon County? You
And
get houses falling down, tree limbs down, cars sitting everywhere. They did not have a code enforcement officer. I just could not believe that. So,
We got one now.
oh, we definitely got
A
one
lot
now
of progress.
because I kept going on and on and on. That was just, I was on that one with them. You have to have a code enforcement officer here because people just had stuff everywhere.
This is the area that people would drop, the West Side, would people would
Yeah.
just lay things off that would not get the attention that they would get in other parts of the city,
Right.
quite frankly.
Throw mattresses on vacant lots and throw their trash on vacant lots because they didn't want to pay to have it picked up. It was
Yeah,
just
that's definitely, an issue that we see with brownfields when these sites are sitting vacant, and
But
neglected.
the whole
Definitely, we can see
community.
illegal dumping.
No, they use the whole community, because we own 10 acres in the bottom, and people would come, and it was along the creek, and people would violate our land and go there and dump down to the bottom, because we wouldn't see down in the bottom.
Right.
So yeah, that they treated the whole community like that, not just the physical dump site, but the whole community. I think that's the point they were making. It
Yeah.
wasn't just the brownfield area. And again, like I say, they we were treated differently, because not only do we get a incinerator, transfer station, dump, for lack of a better word, but we also have a landfill that is still there, that brought vermin and all kinds of refuse to that side of town. And as we say all the time, vermin don't know that your property line ends here and that somebody else's property line begins there. They don't know they can't cross property lines. So
Yep. Yeah. So actually, on the kind of topic of the site, someone asks, Did you have to get the site assessed to find out if it was contaminated? What were the results? What type of cleanup was required and how was that funded? So I think maybe you can share a little bit about the EPA Brownfields program and how that all played into that.
Well, the site assessment has been completed. What is called they had a phase 1 completed, then a phase 2, which would be core samples. And I'm not familiar with the results of the phase 2, other than it'll provide the scope of the work that will need to be done for the cleanup, if I have that correct.
Yes, because we don't have phase 2 results yet.
But I'll tell you one little interesting story, and Vanessa and Anna can certainly add to this, but there was a baseball team that had their own baseball field here at what was called right where the dump location is now is called Riverside Park. And this baseball field was in an adjoining piece of land. And when they played baseball there, teams would come over from around central Kentucky back in the 40s and the 50s. And the gentleman doing the survey, phase 1, did aerial surveys going back to 1952. And he found the baseball field lined out from an aerial photograph. It was the coolest thing. It was kind of like that out of that movie Field of Dreams. They found the baseball field, that's now was covered up with trees and everything, but how it was lined out in the dugouts and the bases it's just really cool from a 1952 aerial photograph. And I said, now you're just talking about the baseball field in the park next door. He said, no. This is 1952. This is the field they played baseball. So just really neat part of history for that neighborhood.
Yeah, so much history. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And so my final question for all three of you is, what lessons learned or advice would you like to share with other communities who are looking to lead their own land revitalization efforts? Or any final words that you want to share with our audience here today?
Well, I'd like to say, find you an Anna Allen Edwards, and she can put that whole team together, believe me, because I would have never been able to do that. That's what you gotta do.
Yep. Community champion. Yeah. Okay.
Just keep
Anna or Bill?
Keep persevering.
Yeah, don't give up.
Don't give up. That it just keep the subtle pressure on, subtle things to keep it moving along, even though it's not moving real fast at the time.
And here in Paris, they like to know you're not going to give up, because I had to miss a city commissioner meeting, and Sharon Fields, who is a commissioner and my cousin, sent me a text right away saying, "Are you sick? You're not at the meeting today." And I was visiting my daughter. So I wasn't sick, but somebody had asked, "Where is she?" Because I go to every one of them.
Yep. Checking in on everybody. Yeah. Well, also want to give a shout out to John Valench, who, former colleague who worked with you all very closely. And I know you all had a bunch of other partners who are involved in this process.
Yeah, John, he drove us home.
Yeah, he did.
He did great.
Yeah. And so, yeah, thank you all so much, Vanessa, Anna, and Bill, for sharing this story with us, and to all your partners and stuff. I know it took a lot to get this going, and your advice has been super helpful and inspirational and powerful, and I really hope that others have taken something away from this. So just want to thank you all, and excited to see the site in the future and what it looks like when it's fully completed. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna share some slides to close us out.
Thank you, Groundwork USA.
Yeah. And John helped us with our railroad overpass too, because we had an issue with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And thank all the attendees. We so appreciate you attending and asking questions.
Yep, yeah, the questions were great. So with that, thank you again to our speakers today and everyone who joined. Again, this webinar was brought to you through our Brownfield Technical Assistance Program. And, we have a webinar coming up in May, Workforce Development and Brownfield Revitalization, the Emerald Trail Stewards Program webinar will be featuring our Groundwork affiliate in Jacksonville, Groundwork Jacksonville. Technical assistance applications, if you want to work with Groundwork USA, like we had the pleasure of working with Bill, Anna, and Vanessa, the applications will be open soon. So sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with all these different opportunities. Or you can scan this QR code on the screen to also sign up for newsletters. But yeah, so we'd love to, get to know all the audience members as well. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining, our panelists. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And if you have any additional questions, reach out. Happy to talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.